Okay. Your microwave. The microphone's going on.
Hey. Yeah. All right, our regularly scheduled meeting of December 21st is now in session. Would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Clark?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Brinkman? Here. Councilmember Cernanik?
Present.
Councilmember Cole? Here. Councilmember Stallman?
Here.
Councilmember Taylor?
Present.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Here. Would you all rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I have two changes to the agenda. One is an addition for a scheduled public appearance on the Colorado Center for the Blind's Healing Fund, which would be at 6A and a half, or 6A since we don't have any guest citizens, and the removal of item 7F, since that was put on the agenda by mistake. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is approved as modified. Minutes from
Mayor
December.
Clark?
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, I have two changes on page 4.
Okay, of the minutes?
128 through 134, I spelled Mr. Du Bois' name wrong. And page 11, 369 is Adam Schrager, and it's Schrager.
Okay. Any other changes?
I had given some to Wendy earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, Wendy, I forgot to give you, they're 262. I think it's just not, the second sentence there is just not in support of, it's just a grammar thing.
Oh, I found that today.
Okay, good, thanks.
Anything else? Then those minutes are approved as amended. Any new city employees?
No, not tonight.
All right. That brings us to our newly added item 6A and a half. Deb.
Good evening. On Friday, December 17th, our community was shaken with the news that 3 students from the Colorado Center for the Blind were struck by a car while waiting for a bus. We learned later that day that Dave Nanny died from his injuries, and Georgie Sidnor and Carissa Ubersox were in serious condition with multiple injuries. Thankfully, none were life-threatening. The news hit hardest at CCB. Teachers and students heard about the accident as they were preparing for their holiday party. Ironically, the 3 were headed to the holiday party when they were hit. This small, close-knit family was shaken to the core. Every day in Littleton, we watch these amazing students navigate through our streets. They are the most independent and stubborn folks you'll ever meet. They are conquering their blindness with confidence. They are a proud group. But today they are broken. They have lost a friend and are watching as 2 more friends work to heal their broken bodies. They are trying to understand how this could happen and why did this happen. The school is in recess for the holidays, and classes will resume first week of January. 3 students will not be there. The hole left by their absence will be deep. 8 new students will arrive to begin their education, but they will never know David, and they will not meet Georgie or Carissa for months. Coping will be difficult. The grieving process will be reopened for these students as they return from break and rejoin their life at school. They will need help. Grief counselors, therapists, and professionals who can gently and lovingly guide these students, teachers, administrators, and staff through a process that is difficult and deeply emotional. These people will be needed for an undetermined amount of time. A great deal of the healing is just beginning, healing the bodies, healing the hearts, and healing the minds. The residents at the Pinnacle are also deeply affected by the tragedy. These students were their neighbors and friends. Just as in any community, the smaller it is, the tighter the relationships. And as one heals, all heal. The Healing Fund, in honor of David Nanny, has been established at Colorado Business Bank. Donations will go to assist with the healing of the lives that were affected by this tragedy. The fund will help cover the cost of grief counselors and other healing needs the school may have, and to support David's family. The fund will be administered by Carol Elzy at the Colorado Center for the Blind. This evening, I'd like to introduce the Executive Director at the Colorado Center for the Blind, Julie Deeden. She'd like to say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. And I'd like to tell all of you how much I appreciate your kindness, your caring, your generosity, and that in a time of tragedy, when something like this happens, we really see the spirit of all of you. And there's nothing more better. Good grammar I have. There's nothing better than being a part of the city of Littleton and being in this community, because we received phone calls almost immediately when this happened of support, of people reaching out and asking and wondering, how are we all doing at the Colorado Center? The staff at Littleton Hospital went above and beyond what you could ever imagine, just doing everything imaginable. I've been there a lot lately in the last few days. All the staff and everyone there have been tremendous. The Littleton United Columbine Church actually held a candlelight vigil for us and for others on Sunday evening at the bus stop where this occurred. And I am here to thank all of you and to tell you how much I appreciate it all. Two of our students have left the hospital, so they're very excited. You get sick of hospitals after a while, and they have gone. They are going home. One to Virginia, and the other to Wisconsin. This fund will really make a difference for them. And it will also make a tremendous difference and really be helpful for Dave Nanny, our student who was killed on Friday. He has a daughter who's 19 years old and was married, and of course they depended upon his income as well as, of course, his wife Ann. She's a teacher. So we will hope to and plan to provide funding for them as well. Again, I just wanted to express to all of you how much we appreciate you all, and you are part of us and part of the community. I'd like to next introduce Bill to talk with you a little bit more about the fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Julie's very modest. My name is Bill Hopping, and I'm a citizen of Littleton and also have an office on Main Street. And Julie's very modest because this is a nationally known blind center, as many of us know, and people come from all over the country. I think Chris is from Virginia, or do I have it backwards? Georgie's from Virginia, and Chris is from Wisconsin. David was from Maryland. And they come from all over. We're their home away from home, and it's neat to office on Main Street because those of you who, as you walk down Main, it's not uncommon to see a flock of white canes seeking business cards from specific businesses where they have to go in and get a specific item off the shelf and come back, and it's a tremendous community thing. So here's how you can help. Colorado Business Bank, which is our Main Street bank, has offered to house this fund, and they've done so fee-free, which is typical of them. And you can either mail a check to the Colorado Center for the Blind at their office at 2233 West Shepherd Avenue, and that's Littleton 80120. And I believe that's on the screen for the TV. But also you can drop it by the Colorado Business Bank. It's Christmas season. Come on down and shop. The lights look great. You can drop a check in the lobby or cash if you wish. If it's after hours, they have a 24-hour depository right in the lobby. You can put it right in there, and the business bank will take care of it. You can also go to the Littleton website, littletongov.org, and they'll have directions on how you can get money to the school. But they give us a lot. It's time to help them out a little bit. And if you have any questions, just call the city and we can direct you in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Julia. Our condolences.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate that the long-term assistance for David's family, we can't really easily identify how much might be required to help with that. But the more immediate, with the counseling and the shorter term, do we have any idea at all for the citizens to know the scope of what we're trying to raise?
Councilman Cole, I believe it's a little bit too early in the process to identify that. And we're just really trying to facilitate the setup of this fund so that the school will have total control over it. They administer it. They're the signers. And it will be up to them to develop criteria for how the funds are allocated. And, of course, it depends on how much comes in. There will be certainly long-term needs because the students of the school are going to need help. It's such a tight-knit community, and the two students who were hospitalized, although they are being discharged, they had some pretty severe injuries, and it's going to take a significant amount of physical therapy. So the short answer is we don't know.
So we're just saying, please reach deeply into your hearts to try to help.
Absolutely.
And through your pocketbook.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is David Fried, or David Fried.
Good evening. My name is David Fried, and I, first of all, thank you very much for your time this evening. I am with a company called Cassidy Turley Fuller & Company, and we're a commercial real estate firm. The reason I'm here tonight is I was here last week for your meeting to discuss redevelopment of different properties around the city and had the opportunity to hear everybody's kind of thoughts and different views of where the world is and how Littleton, is looking for tax revenues and what different courses could be considered in accomplishing new tenancies and driving property tax revenues for the city. I represent a family in town, a gal named Linda Sutton, and her husband is Larry Harrower. And that family was the original developer and owner of the old Crestwood Inn, sitting at the 800 block of Littleton Boulevard. The building has sat vacant for approximately 3 years and is a very, very tired building. We met these folks about 2.5 years ago and got involved through a mutual friend just to try to help them determine what is the highest and best use for the property and what could be done to either find somebody to redevelop the property or just, again, somebody that would come in and do something with the property that could help it over the next 40 years. It's been there for approximately 40 years. With the economy being what it is, the opportunity to redevelop that property and the economics in doing so have made it very, very difficult because there's plenty of opportunities for people to buy pads or buy land to build a building on. We marketed it to restaurants and to so many different uses and hundreds of different uses, and we actually have been successful in finding a restaurant operator that feels this Littleton and that particular part of Littleton and is an opportunity and would like to try to revitalize the building. And when we went and put our numbers together to look at really what it would take to redo that building, there was a fire in it in the past, and the roof is shot, the HVAC, the parking lot, the sidewalks, not to mention the interior. It is realistically Could be as much as $1 million, but it's certainly somewhere in the $600,000 to $800,000 range just to get the building up and operating again. The folks that own the building are willing to go to the bank and take a loan and do many of these improvements to try to bring the building back to life. And the new business proprietor is also interested and willing in making an investment in the interior of the building to try to create a business that would be successful. And when I look at all of the pieces, what I see is a building that may get put back in service, but because of the budget and the constraints, that realistically the building will get up and running again, but it's tired, and it really, really needs a lot of money. I listened to everybody's thoughts, or I listened to everybody's bits and pieces of their thoughts last week as to investing in properties and what made sense and what didn't make sense. And I have to tell you, I've been in the business for 30 years. I'm a property owner. I've developed properties, and I have brokered thousands of deals throughout Denver Metro. I lived through the 80s. We are now into another cycle that is different than the 80s, but certainly is what it is. And when we looked at different ways to see if the city could participate, not in handing over dollars, but whether it be some type of help in fees, whether it be some type of help in, I know TIF is the wrong word to use because it's not there, but some flavor of putting this building back in service and doing it in some form of, for lack of better words, a partnership, gives the city and the residents a historical property that really so many people in Littleton know this building, and to see that building come back to life. We have a family-style Italian restaurant that would like to be there, and we're looking for a way to bridge the gap, whether it be for some exterior improvements, but if we can get these folks back in business, there will be tax revenues there. There will be sales tax dollars. And whether it be some type of sharing in that long term, whether it be, we're just a few blocks out of the enterprise zone, but to just throw money at opportunities doesn't make sense to me. To put a facelift on a property didn't make sense to a lot of you folks, but to have a tenant or to be able to incentivize developers or landlords to bring in tenants and share in part of the upside that the city's not getting currently seems to be, for lack of better words, common sense and good business. And so I'm here to somewhat plead on behalf of the owners of the building some type of economic incentive to try to get this deal pushed over the top, to try to get these folks that will have to go to the bank and personally guarantee a loan and take substantial risk, which is the real world, but more so the prospective tenant that has 5 other restaurants around the state, has been very successful. I think that the community would love to have a great restaurant in that location. As an Italian restaurant, there's very little competition of such. To see that building that people's kids and grandkids and grandfolks and folks have been a part of for the last 40 years, I think it would, in this time of the cycle, would be a wonderful statement to be able to show the community something that is tired and old, be resurrected, and have a nice look from the curb, a nice asset to the community, and be there for the next 40 years. I've gone as far as to offer to sit in on your session that you're going to have in the future. I think my background and my insights as to not how to blindly throw money at projects, but to creatively come up with remedies that as a partnership are good common sense is really why I'm here to introduce myself, introduce my client, and reintroduce 819 West Littleton Boulevard to the council.
Thank you, Mr. Freed.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Bruce?
Mr. Freed, if I can ask you, do you guys, have you got any sort of a formal proposal, or are you in the process of working with staff to identify what the magnitude of an expectation would be as far as that partnership or participation might look like?
Thank you for asking that question. We met only to this point with Chris Gibbons, and Chris said because we're out of the enterprise zone, because there's no TIF money, that, I mean, he's very supportive and certainly understands what we're saying, but encouraged us to come to last week's meeting, hoping that maybe we would at least have a chance to share some of these thoughts. But we know what the costs are to do everything we need to do. Mm-hmm. And candidly, I don't think there's much that we're looking for from the city. I think we're looking for something. I think we're looking for, something to push this thing over the top. Our budget's out of sight. The building really has been neglected because it was on a ground lease for 40 years. Mm-hmm. And so the operator really didn't put any money to speak of. And if anybody would take the time to go up on the roof of the property, you'll see it's been encapsulated over the past 25 years. Every heating and air conditioning unit, every piece of ductwork, and the roof itself has just had foam put on top of it. And all of it needs to be taken out, taken down. The whole roof needs to be stripped to nothing. You need to go to the open beams and rebuild the whole top of the structure. The whole parking lot needs to be redone. All new HVAC, plumbing, electrical, et cetera. Sure. What many people have to do. But again, it's front and center. It's a fairly small project, and we have all the pieces to make this thing work.
Okay. Well, I guess it'd be interesting if you're having, I understand what Chris indicated, and this isn't something collectively we have a history with. If you have a specific proposal, it'd be interesting to at least entertain it and sort of see if that could get kicked around. It's harder if it's just,
Not at all.
more amorphous.
Listen, philosophically, let me share a proposal, just a thought. Let's say that we were able to properly do something where we shared in part of the tax revenues that we're going to send to the city to the tune of 25 or 50% up to $100,000. And it might take 10 years to get there. But at least it shows these folks that are making this large commitment right now that their commitment is for good reason. And it also shows, it just shows a partnership. It shows the city then will realize that we can't take $1 until we give you $1, mm-hmm. and we're sharing in the revenue that you're not getting right now.
And I guess what I'm saying is I think that's, I think it's not a discussion we've had as a council. It would be an interesting discussion potentially to have, assuming council collectively wants to have that discussion.
Sure.
But it'd be, a round of context or a framework that would be a little bit more constructive or concrete. Helps frame it potentially better. So I don't know if that's something that can be worked on with staff at your end or not.
And we would welcome your direction, and we would take your direction and run with it in a big way. We have a signed document with a contingency in it, and it's a financing contingency. Mm-hmm. And these people would like to start construction after the first of the year, both the owners of the building and the tenants. And so timing is becoming a bit of an issue for us, and we're just trying to make a decision in, do we walk from the deal? Do we try to buy a little more time? Do we go down this road and start spending dollars hoping that we can solve the problem at the end, which is not the way I live my life, and I would not recommend that to my friends.
Okay. Okay. Appreciate that.
Thank you very, very much for your time, everybody. And I'm not sure where I go from here or how I follow up, what have you, and maybe I could get some direction that way. But
if the council decides that it wants to do anything, it'll send a letter or contact you through the staff.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
I appreciate it. Happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you too. That brings us to unscheduled public appearances, which are a time anybody can come down and address us about any issue or have any question. We ask that you limit yourself to about 4 minutes. And that if we don't know you, you give your name and address.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jerry Hill. I live at 5444 South Prince. This is an unscheduled appearance. I'm not quite as emotional as the last speaker. I thought I'd give you just a little bit of an insight. Early on in my term as a commissioner for Littleton Housing Authority, we were seeking out a site for our administrative building. It would not be revenue enhancing, but it would free up another site that we ultimately used. We were very interested, I would say on an informal basis, not an executive session, but we did talk extensively about the property at the Crestwood. At that time, we reached just a flat closed door. We offered a significant, what we thought was a significant offer as far as profit making, that they could move on. We realized the historic value of the Crestwood and the history of it, and we were enamored also with the with the parking available behind and around. We thought that it would be a valuable addition. It was in the central part of Littleton itself, and we were told no purchase, no way. Strictly lease. They thought a lease was the only way to go. They would not accept anything. There was no, talks were terminated. There was nothing. So I just thought I'd share that as a footnote to give you an insight. I have a bit of a cold. That's not emotional. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Hill, for your objective comments. Anyone else? Mr. Brown?
I'm Norman Brown. I live at 6081 South Spotswood Street on the very edge of District 1. I guess I'm a fringe element of District 1. I just wanted to offer a thank you to the Littleton Historical Museum. I made an acquaintance in the past 6 months or so who volunteers with the South Platte Valley Trolley and is very knowledgeable about trolleys. He asked me if I knew anything about the trolley cars that used to run in downtown Littleton, and I did not. I'm not quite as old as my friend Jerry Hill, so I had to confess I didn't know a bit about them. We made arrangements to meet with the deputy director at the museum, Lorena Donahue, and she had some information, pictures, and some dates and some things there. The Historical Museum is able to reproduce and enlarge portions, and he ordered several, maybe up to half a dozen, to be sent to the Lakeshore, I believe it's Lakeshore Trolley Museum in Maine. They have one of the trolley cars that used to run here in Littleton. It stopped various places, including Massachusetts, but it is being restored up there, and the museum here, with the pictures and some others that they have, is facilitating that restoration. So who would guess that from Littleton the trolley line runs all the way to Maine? But anyway, that's the situation now. So the Historical Museum is a valuable resource, and it's the first time in many, many years, at least a couple decades, that I've tried to do any research down there. So this is the new facility. It's very helpful, and the staff was very good, and I do appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, Norm. Anyone else? All right, that brings us to the consent agenda. Consent agenda are items that are traditionally non-controversial that can be adopted by simple motion. First one is an ordinance on first reading, change regarding fees charged for excavation.
This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, amending Section 8-1-1 and 8-1-2 of the City Code pertaining to street cut permits, repair, and design.
This ordinance would change the minimum charge on a street cut from $5 to $105, which would put us closer to the middle of the market for this type of fee in the Denver metro area. The second reading and public hearing on this would be January 4th. Second item, 7B, is a resolution establishing utility billing account transfer fees.
This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, establishing utility billing account transfer fees.
Our utility billing department processes about 1,700 annual requests for account transfers. These are the transfer of the name of the account when the title on the property changes due to property sales. This resolution would set the fee for doing that transfer at $18. Next is 7C.
This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, establishing sex offender registration fees.
During the 2011 budget, the council decided to increase the registration fees for sex offenders, the initial registration fee from $75 to $120. The annual renewal fee would increase from $25 to $120, and the quarterly renewal fee would increase from $25 to $30. Next is 7D.
This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, establishing non-sufficient check return fees.
The Finance Department processes about 70 checks, non-sufficient funds, and this would establish a fee of $30 for a non-sufficient check charge. Next is 7E.
This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, establishing community development fees.
This resolution would increase a whole bunch of application fees that we have with the Community Development Department. There's a big chart on what those fees would be increased to, and the fees would be charged not just on the size of the property, but the complexity of the project with this new fee schedule. 7F we pulled as a change to the agenda. 7G is a resolution for fingerprint fees.
This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, establishing fingerprinting fees.
Currently, the fee for getting fingerprints is $10 for the first two cards, but the service for providing fingerprints is restricted to city residents. This proposal extends the service to non-city residents for the same price of $10 per card.
I'm going to pull that so I can ask questions.
Okay. 7G is pulled. 7H, bike medic fees.
This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, establishing bike medic fees.
This resolution would increase the fees that Littleton Fire and Rescue charges for special events from $50 an hour for bike medics to $80 an hour for bike medics. The next one is, okay, that's pulled also. Next one is 7I, which I'm going to pull before we read the title, which brings us to what's remaining on the consent agenda. And let's see, G and H.
Mr. President, I move we adopt consent agenda items A, B, C, D, E, and G.
G's been pulled.
G's been pulled.
Okay.
Sorry.
A, B, C, D, E.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? I'm going to vote against these on consent agenda because I voted against these for the most part in the study session on the budget.
The vote is 6 in favor, with the mayor voting no, and the motion is approved.
Okay. That brings us to our pulled item, our first one, which is 7H.
G.
Or G.
Gee, sorry, my alphabet's bad. That's the resolution establishing fingerprint fees.
I have a question about the actual cost of the fingerprinting, to do the fingerprinting.
We'll have Chief Coogan come down and explain that.
Hi.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening, Chief.
I'm sorry, ma'am, the question?
So I want to know the actual cost to do the fingerprinting, either per person or per card.
It probably takes between 5 and 10 minutes to actually fingerprint a person. The clerk has to stop whatever they're doing. Someone else takes over, they go out and they fingerprint them, and they make approximately $20 an hour. So we're probably talking about maybe $3 to $5 in terms of labor costs.
For the 2 cards or 1 card?
For the 2 cards.
And so we're looking to make money off of people?
No, we think it would probably be about the same. I pulled the numbers for how much we charge. The difference would be, the only change is really going to be the fact that we'll be allowing people who are not residents to be fingerprinted here. And we'll be charging them a fee is the customary fee in the metro area.
But from what you just said, we could do 2 cards, which we could do for residents for about $5, and yet we're charging 10?
We charge 10.
So we would be making money.
On the non-residents,
No,
we'll be charging
even
the
on the
same amount for a resident that we've always charged.
Yeah, but, so I'm getting at what we always charge or whatever. So we make money off of our residents when we do fingerprint cards, unless they're fingerprinted to serve as a volunteer, like at the library or museum or whatever.
That's correct.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So, and why do we fingerprint non-residents?
Well, we don't, this resolution would allow non-residents to be fingerprinted
But why
here.
would we?
Because they work in Littleton, and they would like to get the fingerprint card here because it's convenient for them. They stop by the police department, and so it would be a service as a customer that they come to get fingerprinted, and we would do it for them instead of telling them that they'd have to go to their local jurisdiction. And $10 is a pretty low fee. The college charges $25 a card. So all over the metro area, everyone charges a different amount. This is on the low end.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Here's one. Chief, have we ever thought or investigated, or would it be possible to move to a digital technology for fingerprinting? Would that help us at all in our processing?
We actually use that for people that we process, that we arrest, and we have all of that technology on site. But when someone comes for a card, that card is required by CBI to register for things like to be a realtor, to work in the schools, and so they require those paper cards. And so we do those paper cards for them. And we actually purchase the paper cards. If the person doesn't have them, then we purchase those cards and have them on hand. And CBI requires them to mail those in. For arrestees, we use the digital.
So have we ever thought about using the digital fingerprinting as a service for other folks that may take digital? For example, FINRA is one organization that takes it. Right now there's only one location in Denver that's available to the public to go to capture digital fingerprints.
That wouldn't be something that I would want to do because it would require us to take citizens back into the holding cell area, into a secured part of the police department, which probably wouldn't be a very pleasant visit.
Okay. So it's because it's in a secured area.
Yes, it's actually where the holding cells are.
Thank you.
I have one more question, too. Could the Police Academy alumni volunteers do fingerprinting, or does it have to be done by certain people?
No, we train a number of people. People here in the building do them in records. We train the Littleton Public Schools. They do their own cards. So we actually train other people to do it. Anyone could do it. But we actually have hours and people available so that when someone shows up at the window, we stop whatever we're doing and we accommodate that person.
But now that we're having the office in the new facility for volunteers, is there a way we could make use of them?
I would imagine we could, but we don't have set hours for volunteers. That would be something we'd have to look at in the future.
Okay. I mean, part of me would like to reduce the cost of this, at least for citizens of Littleton. I'm not totally sure why, except that we're being nice, that we want to provide service for somebody else when it's we have enough difficulty with our budget as it is, so, but thank you.
Just a comment from my experience, because I send numbers of people to get fingerprints taken for various different licenses. And the only place where you can get a card less is with Greenwood Village, and they charge $5 per card. So if you're going to get 2 cards, it's going to be $10 as well.
And CBI requires 2 cards, and all the licensings require 2 cards. So that's why we wrote it that way.
All right, we need a motion. Thank you, Chief. Any other questions for the Chief?
I move the resolution authorizing an increase in the fees charged for fingerprint cards be approved, and the mayor be authorized to affix his signature thereto.
Second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Bruce got the second. To approve the resolution authorizing the increase in fees, actually, that looks close enough. I'm not opposed to providing this service to non-Littleton residents when passing the motion, but I am opposed to the second whereas because I don't believe that that's a policy that the council has set. So I move that we remove the second whereas from the resolution. And that dies
So,
for...
wait a minute, no. So I'm just making sure I'm hearing, and I was reading it. So you're moving to take the second whereas out.
And the second whereas says that the city council has determined that all fees and charges imposed by the city should, okay. The second whereas, for those that don't have it in front of them, says that the city council has determined that all fees and charges imposed by the city should reflect the actual costs and expenses incurred by the city. And I don't believe that we have made that determination, despite the fact that that was on the previous resolutions that were passed. So, further discussion on the amendment. The amendment is to remove the second whereas. So a yes removes it. All in favor?
The vote is 4.
You voted against your amendment. Okay.
The yes removes it.
The motion is 5
Thank you.
to 2, with Councilmember Taylor and Councilmember Stallman voting no. The motion is approved.
I hate these switches. All right. That brings us to the main motion, the amended main motion, which is to allow cards for fingerprinting for non-residents. Up is yes.
The motion is 7 to 0. The motion is approved. The vote, excuse me.
Thank you. That was a rough one. 7H is the bike medic fees, and I believe, Jose, you pulled that.
Yes, I did. I was looking at this, and it kind of set me back a bit, because on the next page we have a Judge Katzman who will be, we're going to do the professional services with him for $70 an hour. And our bicycle medics, we're raising them from $50 to $80, which puts them $10 over. My proposal would be to amend that and drop it to $65 an hour rather than the $80.
Okay, are you making that as the motion?
Yes.
Okay. It's been,
Do we have a motion on
He
the
just-
original yet?
he just made that. He moved, I'll frame this, to approve the resolution approving a bike medic fee increase in the amount of $65.
Mr. Mayor, in reality, those should be 2 separate motions, one to approve the resolution, the other to amend it. You're trying to accomplish 2 things in one motion. I don't think that's by parliamentary procedure.
Okay, so you want to split it?
It needs to be split, yes, sir.
All right. In that case, you want to move to approve it, and then Jose?
I would move to approve the resolution establishing bike medic fees.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to do it at $80 now. Jose, you want to amend that to $65?
Yes, I would like to amend it to $65 per hour.
Okay. I'll second that. So the motion is to amend the resolution to change the bike fees from $80 to $65. Discussion?
Mayor?
Yes.
Make sure I understand. This is essentially what we're doing with this $80 is, again, a cost recoupment to events, sponsors who utilize the bike medics for purposes of recovering our cost in terms of providing the service. That's the correct way to phrase this, right?
That's one correct way of phrasing it.
Yeah, potentially a correct way to phrase it.
Yes.
So essentially, if we drop it to 65, we're lowering our reimbursement from the event sponsors who are using our employees for service purposes.
That's another possible way of rephrasing it, yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure I was on the same page.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yes, I have a question for the chief.
Good evening, good council.
Chief, with regard bike medic deployment on this, they're also under the supervision at the time that they're performing their bike medic rounds at special events. They're subject to an oversight within Littleton Fire at that same point in time.
That is correct.
Okay, so that's there. And also, with regard the bike medic, do we have any minimum number of hours that someone would need to contract for bike medic fees at any point in time?
We do not.
So that's a little bit different than our judicial contracts.
That is correct.
Our agreements. So, thank you.
So we've got a cost of $65 per unit, or per person.
Yes, sir.
Bicycle
Per
unit.
medic per hour.
Yeah.
Well, that would be if the amendment passed.
Yeah, if it's passed.
We currently have it at 50. The original motion was to 80.
Yeah.
Bruce?
Chief, refresh my memory, the original construction of this during the budget process had to do with the $50 an hour was a combination of direct cost plus, dollars per hour that we're paying the medics, plus some sort of administrative overhead, plus equipment costs and depreciation and maintenance.
Depreciation, fuel cost, and getting those bicycles wherever they go into Highlands Ranch or the district or the city.
Right, so it's not just straight pay rate that's being reimbursed here.
That is correct. And good counsel, the $50 was the original that we put together, the regional fee, and I believe we put that together in 2001. It has not been revisited. The reason that we brought it forward to council, as you recall, and that was a result of the OEC study, as they were going over our efficiency and effectiveness, and it was the OEC study that suggested that we revisit and raise that fee.
Further questions?
So now I'm confused. So what is the actual cost that we figure we have when we do this? How much does it cost per hour, including all this stuff you've just said?
Well, Councilmember Cole, I believe that it's about $45 per hour for time and a half for those bike medics. We have not broken out the cost or kept track of the cost of fuel to get those bike medics from their stations to the event and back. We have not factored in the cost of administrative fees as far as actually doing the contract and the contacting with those vendors or those agencies that are requiring bike medics. We have not done that.
Chief, the $80, my recollection is, actually came out of the OEC study itself.
That is correct. That came out of the OEC study, and it was a comparison with what the market will bear, and that was West Metro charging $80 an hour.
So, there are two issues then. Do we just go with the going rate that somebody else has because the OEC said, hey, they charge that, why don't you guys charge that? or do we essentially provide a service and make sure we cover the costs of providing that service?
Councilman Cole, I think we discussed this a couple of months ago regarding this issue. And anytime you look at fees of increasing them, there's always the two ways, which you all are discussing, is the actual dollar cost when you calculate all the intricacies of whether it be time or materials or whatever, or you look and see what the market could bear. And at this point, this is a little bit of a combination of both. 80 is what has been suggested as the market can bear, and somewhere in between 50 and 80 is the true actual cost. Now, there's some other things that if we really looked into this, I mean, you could look at not just the salary, but the benefits and everything else. But to be honest, we thought at this point, when it came forward, that we sort of had the direction from council to move ahead with the $80. But we can certainly go back and run the numbers and spend time doing that if you want.
Well, we already discussed this at
Yeah.
some length at the budget session. Bruce?
Chief, I guess just to sort of go full circle on this whole thing, another way to look at this is, from your guys' review of the details associated with this, without necessarily grinding it through every potential cost, and anytime you do some of this work to allocate costs to a revenue, there's judgment that goes into determining where to draw the line in terms of how much ancillary or overhead costs goes into a rate. But is it fair, in your opinion, to basically say that $80 is highly likely to cover the vast majority of the costs that the city's incurring for this, and is reasonable in terms of how you guys look at providing the service soup to nuts?
Yes, sir, I believe it's reasonable.
Okay, thanks.
Well, let's at least ask the other part. Would 55 pretty much do the same thing?
Well, Councilmember Cole, the only way I could address that, I believe, is that $50 in 2001 sounded reasonable, and at the time it was.
Folks, I think we're trying to make the staff actually take a position on what's going to be policy.
Well, no, since we
And I don't think that's really fair.
had the one, I'd like to move that we postpone this to our next regular meeting so we could have some numbers. And
All right, it's been moved to postpone this to
January 4th.
January 4th. Is there a second? It dies for lack of a second.
I move that the resolution approve.
We have a motion on the floor, which is the amendment. Sorry. So, any more discussion on the amendment to change the amount from $80 to $65?
The only reason I kind of suggested this is the fact that probably where these bike medics generally help out is Western Welcome Week and the things that the citizens participate in, and the organizations that have to pay this cost. It makes it a little more difficult for them. Plus, I didn't want to get that figure above, have them have a figure that's above one of our judges at $70 an hour, which is coming up next.
And can I ask one more question? Who decides how many medics they have or need? Do they just say, we think one is enough?
Littleton Fire Rescue decides that, and it's never less than two.
Never less than two?
Never less than two, and it depends on a couple of things, Councilmember Cole. One is the area to be covered, such as going down the bike path and that goes along the river. If it's a 6 or 7 mile, it takes more medics. If it's a group of 10,000 or more, it'll take certainly more than 2 medics. But those are the kind of judgments that we make and suggest to those people that are employing us. And Western Welcome Week, we do not charge for bike medics.
But the others then we're charging for, these are essentially fundraising events for the good of the immediate or more general community. Is this right?
Yes, ma'am. Fundraising events, community events, they are athletic events, cross-country running events, those kind of things.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. We're voting on the amendment. The amendment is to change the amount from $80 to $65. A yes vote, which is switch up, changes it to 65. Councilman Cole.
The vote is 3 in favor and 4 against. Councilmember Cernanek, Councilmember Taylor, Councilmember Brinkman, and Councilmember Stahlman voting no. The motion fails.
Okay, that brings us back to our unamended main motion, which would change the bike medic fees to $80. Discussion on that. Council ready to vote?
The vote is 4 in favor with Councilmember Cole, Mayor Clark, and Councilmember Trujillo voting no. The motion is approved.
All right. That brings us to pulled item 7I, which is a motion to reappoint Judge Katzman and to approve some personal service contracts. One would be with Judge Katzman and one would be a modified one for Judge Anderson. I'm going to ask that this be split into 2 motions, one to reappoint Judge Katzman and then the second one for the contracts. So, somebody want to make the first motion to appoint Judge Katzman?
I move that we appoint Stephen Katzman to the position of municipal court judge.
Second.
Okay, that was you, Jose? So it's been moved and seconded to reappoint Judge Stephen Katzman to a 2-year term.
And authorize your signature. I should have added that, I think.
And, yeah.
It's not understood.
Okay. Any discussion?
The vote is 7-0. The motion is approved.
Okay, and we will swear in Judge Katzman in just a second, as soon as we get done with the contracts. The second motion I think we need is to approve the contracts, and I believe that there's a couple little corrections on mainly or only on Judge Anderson's contract on the exhibits. Most of them are minor things having to do with headings and some extraneous words and things like this. So if we do this, I suggest that we make the motion to approve the contracts and substantially the form there, and then I'll get together with the attorney before they're actually signed. And an example of that would be on Exhibit B, which is the very last page. If you look at the second bullet down, it has a "this includes," which needs to go off. So it's a number of things that are minor at that level. And I can go through all of them if you want. But
So I would move what you said, and if you want me to try to repeat the main part of what you said to approve
all
as a
right.
matter of substance, I will give it a good shot.
All right. It's been moved to approve both contracts in substantially the form presented and authorize the mayor to affix his signature thereto.
Second.
Okay. Discussion.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion is approved.
Now, let's get some swearing going here. And I believe, Mr. Katzman, Judge Katzman, you brought your family with you.
I did.
You want to introduce them to us, please?
Thank you. This is my daughter, Emily, and my son, Sam.
Welcome, Emily and Sam. And you want to come down and...
Is this going to be one judge swearing at another judge?
And let me introduce, this is our presiding judge, Judge Jim Anderson, who will swear in for a renewed term, our backup judge, Judge Katzman.
I, Stephen Katzman, do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Colorado, and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Littleton, and will faithfully perform the duties of Municipal Court Relief Judge upon which I am about to enter. Very much. It's a pleasure to continue to serve. Thank you.
I did.
I do need to sign it, and I need to make a copy, and I'll mail it to you. I'll mail you a copy. Oh, my God. Oops, I did it upside down.
All right, and that gets us through the non-controversial, easy stuff. Next is item 8A, which is an ordinance on second reading.
This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Littleton, Colorado, amending Section 3-16-5 of the City Code pertaining to building contractor licensing and registration.
You want to present this, Jim? Thank you. Thank you.
The ordinance before you is
Introduce
House.
yourself, Jim. Introduce yourself.
Was that echo or was that?
No, that's me. I swear, that's my life.
Yeah.
Jim, introduce yourself. That's
Echo of city managers past.
My name is Jim Thielen. I'm the Director of Codes and Inspections. The ordinance before you tonight is a housekeeping issue. When the City Council approved contractor licensing in 1985, part of the requirements for a license was successfully passing an exam based on the type of license that you wanted. And at that time, the city administered that exam. This practice continued until 2009 because of health reasons or health risks to the staff that we discontinued testing and instead accepted a nationally recognized test that was written by the International Code Council, who publishes the building codes, or we accept a license from another jurisdiction where you were required to test in order to obtain that license. What the ordinance does is state that a test is still a requirement for a license, but that the city will no longer administer that test. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Thielen.
I do have a question about the ordinance that's attached here with the whereases and so forth.
Yes, ma'am.
On the first page in line 24, it says Littleton City Code Section 811E and 811G, but then amended as follows, and then under that is 316-5, and I, partially because of my hand, whatever, I didn't try to locate what that looks like on the website or in the big books that I have. Are those numbers correct?
Section 316.
Yeah, it should be 316-5 E through G.
Not 811.
Right.
In line 24 or?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll get that tidied up, okay?
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And so for the city attorney, the ordinance reference, if we would make the motion, should be to section what?
316.5.
316-5E through 316-5G.
And I have a procedural question.
Yes, ma'am.
So I have a suggested change of the wording that I have worked with the city attorney on to simplify the change that we're trying to achieve, to get rid of, simplify the organization. And so should we do what is before us and then I suggest to substitute, or should I just give this to you all instead? The attorney has
Let's
pointed out
do a motion to approve the ordinance.
Got to do a public hearing.
Well, we're going to have to do that, too. When we get to the motion, let's do a motion to approve the ordinance as it is and then start making amendments. And I think the first amendment will have to be the 316.5.
Okay.
But as Jim reminded me, this is a public hearing. We have no names on the roster, but if anyone wants to come down and address us now would be the time to do it. Okay, seeing none.
I move the public hearing be closed and propose ordinance amending 3-16-5 paren E and paren F be approved on second and final reading, and that the ordinance be published in full by posting the Littleton Center, Bemis Library, the Municipal Courthouse, and City of Littleton webpage, and the council president be authorized to fix his signature thereto.
It's G, not F.
I think she said G.
You said
G.
She said G.
There
She
is
said
no-
G, Jim
there
just
is
said
no G.
F.
The G's been marked out on the ordinance. It's just E and F is the only thing that has anything in there.
But the modification requires lifting G.
here.
If you adopt the ordinance as it is shown to us, you are only making amendments in E and F. G is absolutely struck out, and there's nothing left in G.
You're amending the existing code section G to eliminate it, aren't you?
If I don't put that in the motion, then the fees that are in G are going to stand as presented.
That's true.
So is it F?
Okay.
The codifiers will take care of it. It's not.
No, he's doing it he's saying F on purpose.
Hang on.
Yeah, he's
Hang on.
right.
Okay. Let's get a second for this, and then we'll fix it.
I'll second it.
Okay, good. So, what we have in front of us to second is a motion to modify E and F. Now, Bruce, you want to make one to modify G, just for consistency. And
it'll simplify
why
if I
don't
make
you
mine
change
first.
line 24 too at the same time?
All right, back up. I'm not sure I'm following you. Suzanne, you were saying that the motion should be to modify all the way down on this thing. What was the issue about line 24? I'm sorry.
No, if you just go to line 24 and amend it to say Littleton City Code Section 3-16-5E through 3-16-5G, I think you'll take care of everything.
Oh, I
in
see
one.
what you're saying. Okay. All right. Okay, so I'll move that, line 24 be amended to basically be, to state 3-16-5E and through 3-16-5G.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to modify the proposed ordinance on line 24 to change the wording to say 3-16-5E through 3-16-5G. Jim?
If you remove G, aren't you removing all fees that the city is allowed to charge for any contractor who comes to do work in the city?
If you remove G...
If you remove G.
Yes. No. You're removing the issuing of a license fee.
For a fee for a test we're administering.
Yes, for a test that we're administering.
But we're not administering the test if you adopt E and F.
That's why that fee's going away.
That's why the fee's going away. days, because we were charging a $50 fee to administer a test.
But we still have staff time that comes in that's got to monitor the fees that are, the licenses that come in. They have to be recorded. They have to be kept track of. They have to be renewed every year. So there is a staff cost to doing this proposal. And if you leave the fees in there, that will cover our staff cost.
Yes. So you could propose to, you could vote against this, which would actually get us in a mess. I don't know what we'd have. I don't know what we'd have on it. Or when we pass this, you could propose an amendment to put the fees back in, which is probably the better thing to do if that's what you want to try and do.
Can I ask, I guess, Suzanne or Phil, the issues Jim's raising, I guess I was under the impression that the fee structure in here was just specifically related to the testing. We have licensing fees that I thought we dealt with couple meetings ago. That's different than the fees that are in this code section. Is that accurate?
No, we'd have to bring these back for a resolution.
Say that again?
We'd have to bring these back to establish them by a resolution. These are different.
So that's what I guess I'm saying. The other contractor fees elsewhere in the code are separate, and do they cover the type of thing Councilmember Taylor was discussing in terms of administrative oversight?
These are the annual contractor fees. And we tried to bring those at the study session, and council voted the increases down.
Okay.
Now, initially, we had brought these thinking council had voted the increases up, and then we had to pull them off the consent agenda because that's not what we were directed to do. So you can do it either way. You can either leave these fees in G and not repeal G and leave it in the ordinance, or you can go ahead and repeal it in the ordinance and we'll bring it back in a resolution.
And the
resolution would say the same thing that the ordinance says. And what happened, just so you understand where this all came from, is when we looked at what the fees were, some of the fees were in an ordinance, some of them were in spreadsheets throughout the city, and we decided if we're going to be consistent, let's pull them out of the ordinances because it's very difficult to change an ordinance every time. If we're going to look at fees annually, then let's put them in resolutions so that we know what we're reviewing and we can go back and look at them.
Okay, but we're not getting the resolution tonight. You're going to
Not tonight. We would get it another time. But that's why you have a bunch of resolutions before, because those weren't ordinances. But then you have a few ordinances where we had fees stuck in them that we're now pulling out, which was your street cut that you got earlier.
Right.
So if you go ahead and repeal this, what you'll get in 2 weeks is you're going to get the street cut resolution, and then you're going to get this resolution back to put these same fees in without an increase.
Okay. All right. I got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Jim,
It does. I'm still going to vote against it because I think if you leave G out, it solves our problem without having to come back for a resolution. And I understand what Suzanne just said about moving all the fees out of ordinances into resolutions, too.
Okay. Now, remember we were discussing the amendment.
Peggy's got
The amendment changes line 24.
To what?
Encompass go from 8-1-1E and 8-1-1G, changes it to 3-16-5E through 3-16-5G.
So that's only that amendment?
That is all that we are discussing
If I want to
right
do
now.
more, I'll wait till after we vote on that.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Any more discussion on Bruce's amendment?
Okay. I'd just like to say that my bear is in favor of the amendment.
But we still end up with 7 votes. So a yes vote would change this to make it from E through G. Council ready to vote? Jim?
The vote is 6 in favor, with Councilmember Taylor voting no. The motion is approved.
Okay. We now have a modified ordinance that looks like pretty much what's in front of us on paper.
Okay, now, I have a motion, so let me recommended change, so let me distribute this, and then I can comment on it. I think that's one for each of you, and then I can read it. Let me give you all a chance to read it, then I'll read it out loud if that's okay, what I'm proposing.
Okay.
So to help you this, it's saying the same thing but simplified so that we get rid of the complicated E and F that address two separate kinds of things, but now we really have one thing we're dealing with. And I wanted for people who wanted to apply for a license or certificate to have something as simple as we could state rather than just keeping the lettering in the original. So when you're ready, I'll make a motion and read all of this out loud.
We're ready.
Okay. I move that, what is this? We substitute E for E and F. We've already taken care of G, I think, in the proposed motion, so that E would read, every applicant for a license shall provide proof that the applicant successfully tested and passed an examination for the requested license type. An applicant must demonstrate either, one, that the applicant has been issued a similar license and is in good standing in another jurisdiction in the state of Colorado where testing for the license was required, or two, that the applicant has passed a test through the International Code Council or a similar nationally recognized organization approved by the division.
I'll second it.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to replace the language that's in the ordinance that was attached to our communication with the language that Peggy has supplied us.
And so now discussion?
Discussion.
Yeah, so I had pointed out to our city attorney that the changes seemed unnecessarily cumbersome, trying to keep the E and the F separate, and so she's the one that helped formulate this to take care of all that she and Mr. Thielen thought needed to be said.
All right, any other discussion? Bruce?
I'm sorry, I got distracted. Suzanne, I guess just from your standpoint, the preference for one versus the other, the more Peggy's simplified version of the whole thing, you're pretty much comfortable that it's quid pro quo, either one's fair?
Yeah, we're fine with either. I think the way they ended up in two is we were just working with two sections, so we struck out and added where it previously existed, but one section's fine.
Okay, understand. Thanks.
I have a question for Jim. Jim, when in this language it talks about a similar license, what's the range when we're talking about a similar license?
There are different categories that we issue a license for. People that just build residential projects, people that build high-rises, people that install mechanical systems, and so forth. if you provide proof from another jurisdiction that you tested and successfully passed the exam for what we classify as a license to build a high-rise, we will give you a comparable license in the city of Littleton to do the same type of work.
Would a better term be comparable rather than similar?
Okay?
Second, earlier we were talking about possible licenses that may have been issued in other jurisdictions that might not be within the state of Colorado. Would we consider those typically sufficient?
Currently, the United States is under the same set of building codes. The codes that we use in Littleton are the same codes that they use in Tallahassee. So whether you tested in another state under the same codes, it makes no difference to us as far as proving your competency of knowledge of that code.
Okay. And then in this section between yourself and the city attorney, when it says approved by the division, does that have a specific understanding in this section of code?
Yes, it does.
Approved by building division.
Okay.
The reason that's in is that there may be in the future, or maybe even currently that I'm unaware of, another nationally organization that provides testing facilities that might write their own test. And once we research those types of organizations, if or when they ever exist, it gives us that opportunity to accept that kind of test in addition to the test that may be written by the International Code Council. So it just gives us a little bit more leeway, and we're not tied to one test, in the future. We can look at other.
I'd like to make a motion.
Well, we've got a motion on the floor for the amendment. Do you want to amend the amendment?
Correct.
Okay. We can only go 2 levels deep.
I understand.
So if you do that, I will point out to you that you still have line 24 to deal with. So pick your.
We've already dealt with line 24.
No, we have not. We dealt with that on the main motion. This replaces the main motion.
No, I amended, not in my wording, it didn't.
This didn't replace the main motion.
Can you read us back what the amended motion was? Because the way I stated it was that your printed ordinance replaced the printed ordinance that we have on the communication that came from us, which becomes the motion that we voted on.
I can include that. I'll include that.
Okay, go for it.
Well, wait a minute, I'd like to hear it back, because I don't recall saying that, but I might be getting fuzzy.
Well,
I have in here that this is, Dr. Cole did an amendment to the amended main motion to substitute for every applicant for a license shall provide proof that they have successfully, and that's as far as I got, because I don't have it, and it was a long motion, but
the way it works is you make the motion, I take the motion the way that you make it, or I restate the motion in a way that makes it a proper motion that is then put on the floor, that is seconded. Once it's seconded, it then belongs to the body, which is what happened in this instance. So.
You're saying you can't make another amendment now?
No, you can make another amendment, but you're limited to one amendment to this motion that's in front of us,
Peggy's proposal,
which replaces the printed ordinance that was provided to us in the communication by the printed ordinance that Peggy gave us.
let me take a shot at it.
Okay, go for it.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we amend the amended motion.
Okay.
So that at line 24, the reference to Section 1, which refers to Littleton City Code, Section be stated to be Littleton City Code Section 3-16-5, paren E, and dropping Sections 3-16-5, F and G, and also, as has been presented before us in line 36, the word similar be replaced with the word comparable.
It's on line 36.
That's on line 36. And on line 37, to replace in another jurisdiction in the state of Colorado to be stated as in another jurisdiction in the United States of America.
All right. Let's make sure we get this right.
Second.
Hang on. You don't know what you're seconding yet. The motion is to change line 24 so that it says Littleton City Code Section 3-16-5E and dropping 3-16-5F and following. And to change line 36, the word similar to comparable, and to change line 37 from in the state of Colorado to in the United States.
A point of order.
Yes.
I think you have to strike through 8-1-1-G, otherwise it's going to stay in here.
No, we're replacing line 24 to say.
Oh, just in its entirety.
Its entirety.
Say what you said. I see what you're saying.
To say Littleton City Code Section 3-16-5E and dropping 3-16-5F and following. Because that's the way that.
Understand. Thank you.
That's the direction that Phil was going. Is that correct, Phil?
Correct.
All right. Peggy, do you want to second that?
Second.
Okay. All right. What we have in front of us is an amendment to the amendment, making changes to line 24 to clean that up and changing similar to comparable in line 36 and in the state of Colorado to in the United States in line 37. Discussion on the amendment to the amendments.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion is approved.
All right. That brings us back to the amended amendment, which is the Peggy passed out section amended by Bruce. If
Amended by Phil.
Phil amended it.
Well,
Second Bruce.
yes, the other Bruce. The other Bruce. Okay.
If you notice, Bruce and I have pointy ears.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
They're puppies.
the vote on this, if you vote yes on this, what you're doing is voting to take Peggy's suggested amendment, which Bruce changed, and to replace the ordinance that is on our communication with that.
Which Phil changed.
They both have puppies.
All right? So,
And I just have a question for clarification to make sure that I'm understanding some of the process, okay? This amendment eliminates Section G, which has reference to license fees. The understanding is that a resolution establishing the fees unchanged from the current fee schedule, but doing that via resolution as opposed to including in the ordinance will be forthcoming
2 weeks.
in 2 weeks.
First meeting, is that 2 weeks?
all right. Any other questions? All right. Ready to vote on the amended Peggy ordinance amended by Phil to replace the one that we have. All right, we all understand. And up is, yes, okay.
Vote is 7 in favor. The motion is approved.
All right, now we're back to the amended main motion. No, we're almost done.
Amendments.
You're close.
Yeah.
So, now, if you're voting on this, you are voting, if you're voting yes, you are voting to change sections 316E to what was submitted by Peggy and dropping sections F and following. What was submitted by Peggy and modified by Phil.
We'll do these minutes tomorrow.
All right. Ready to vote on that? Jose?
The vote is 6 in favor, with Councilmember Trujillo voting no. The motion is approved.
Okay. So as it turns out, the consent agenda item was the easy part. That brings us to item 8B.
This is an ordinance of the City of Littleton, Colorado, amending the provisions for carbon monoxide alarms in the 2009 International Residential Code.
Mr. Thielen from the Building Department.
Monoxide now.
Yeah.
God, I hope this is going to be easier.
So do we.
With a full moon, I wouldn't count on it.
Uh-oh. Oh, boy.
You can borrow mine.
Good evening again, Council. The proposed ordinance before you tonight amends the provisions in the International Residential Code as it pertains to carbon monoxide alarms. Currently, there are 2 documents that provide regulations for these alarms. In 2009, the General Assembly enacted legislation requiring carbon monoxide alarms. Among other requirements in that law, there are provisions that state when a building permit is issued for interior work, a carbon monoxide alarm is required. Those alarms are installed in the hallways leading to bedrooms. Similar requirements appear in the International Residential Code dealing with the same thing as far as building permits are concerned. But their requirement is when any building permit is issued, whether it's for interior or for exterior work. The reason for the amendment, for amending the residential code, is because the provisions are unenforceable when a permit is issued for exterior work, such as a new roof or putting up a fence, putting in a deck, putting on siding. Normally, people are not home at that time, and the building inspectors cannot verify that the alarms are installed. At that time, we'll leave a correction notice advising the homeowner of these requirements, but hardly ever do we get a request for an inspection once those alarms are installed by the homeowners and operational. When a building permit is issued for exterior work, we cannot tell whether or not those alarms are installed. And that's the reason for the amendment. The intention is to make the code enforceable, but that does not mean that the city is discouraging our citizens from not installing carbon monoxide. These devices, that does not mean that we're discouraging our citizens from installing these devices. Each year, hundreds of people die and thousands are admitted to emergency rooms because of carbon monoxide poisoning. This gas is odorless, tasteless, and colorless, and is caused by incomplete combustion of gas-fired appliances, furnaces, or water heaters. These early warning devices, carbon monoxide alarms, alert the citizens that there is carbon monoxide in the air, and that this undoubtedly is going to save many lives because of these devices. To help publicize and to educate the public, staff is preparing an article for the Littleton Independent that will appear in next edition about these devices, and we are filming a public service announcement that will appear on our local channel. It's important that people know that during the cold months of winter, they should not bring in their gas barbecue or their charcoal barbecue or their camp stove to cook. It's also important that the public know that you don't use your gas oven as a forms of supplementing your heat. All of these conditions produce carbon monoxide poisoning. And it's equally important that people know that they should have their furnaces and water heaters serviced by a qualified and licensed mechanical contractor yearly. If there are any questions that council has, I'll try and answer those.
Questions for Mr. Thielen?
Jim, on the exceptions that you've got there, on item number 4, has to do with additions or repairs of plumbing systems, electrical service, or mechanical systems. Those are, or could be, interior work as well. All of your other exemptions are things that can be done from the outside, and I understand electrical service could be outside or inside. But I'm assuming that plumbing systems and mechanical systems are going to be inside work.
Well, the intention was, because we were talking about outside, that those are the types of, like we might have, people going out and, roto-rooting, their plumbing systems or making modifications to their plumbing systems outside. It was not my intention, because this deals strictly with exterior work, that any changing of plumbing systems inside the house would be excluded. Anything that's inside the house, any work that's being done where the building inspectors have access to the home, where that we can verify the installation, was the intent. It was not to exclude that type of work. And I understand what you're saying, Mr. Taylor.
If you had the word exterior somewhere in there, that would help clarify, at least for me, exactly what your exemption is going to be talking about.
Right. I agree.
Any other questions? Thank you. This is a public hearing. There are no names on the roster, but if anyone wants to come down and address us about this issue, now would be the time.
Hey, Jim.
All right. How about a motion? Jim?
Do it here. I move the public hearing be closed and proposed ordinance amending Section 315 of the 2009 International Residential Code be approved on second and final reading. Ordinance be published in full by posting the Littleton Center, Bemis Library, Municipal Courthouse, and City of Littleton webpage, and the council president be authorized to fix his signature thereto.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the ordinance amending Section 315 of the 2009 International Residential Code. Jim?
And I guess for clarification purposes, I really would like to do an amendment to the number 4 exception that would somehow say that it is for exterior work. And I would like to leave it up to the attorney and Jim Thielen to decide how that should go and where it should be put in there.
Can I suggest that you do that as a motion as soon as we get done with this, since that's not, I don't believe
amendment of the ordinance.
Is it?
Yes, it's in the ordinance. On page 2 of the ordinance. This is what.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were working off the other thing. Okay.
No,
go
this is
ahead.
what I'd like to move that the attorney and Jim Thielen work out some kind of language that would clarify number 4 to address being exterior.
I'll second that.
I think that can be accomplished in number 4 by stating installation, addition, or repairs of exterior plumbing systems or electrical service changes, indicating that both of those actions are outside of the building.
So you're just inserting the word exterior between the words of and plumbing?
Correct.
All right.
That'll be my motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to add the word exterior on line 3 of page 2 between the words of and plumbing. And Bruce is second to that discussion on the amendments.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, Jim, so if those items are exterior and they're worked on, is it not also a concern where they are in relation to air intake and so forth?
If I understand your question correctly, air intake, you mean like windows, or do you mean air intake for furnaces?
Yeah, in any way that air might be taken in, if something is installed outside that's faulty, but putting, I don't mean just loosely air, but that there's something that, particularly I guess the air intake system.
On a furnace, there are high-efficiency furnaces which will bring in outside air and exhaust the carbon monoxide outside the building. There are requirements how far those exhausts can be from operable windows or intakes.
So including things like bathroom air intake and so forth.
Exactly.
So we're covered?
That's right in the mechanical, the installation instructions from the manufacturer
Okay,
itself.
so we're okay?
Yes.
Okay, I just needed to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
And Jim, I wanted to bring up a point we discussed earlier. The purpose of this ordinance is to essentially say where code inspection occurs and access is only to the outside of a facility, what this does is it says, geez, we don't have an opportunity to inspect whether there is a carbon monoxide detector inside the building because we're really only looking at the outside.
Correct.
What it doesn't change at all is our encouragement of folks to have a carbon monoxide detector, and as we may have discussed earlier, you would even suggest that they use a plug-in detector as a preference. You would say would be good, so folks don't have to worry about batteries and the like, and they have that somewhere in a hallway or at a level in their home where it can optimize that detection.
Yeah, I think, what you said is correct. By no way do I want this to be interpreted that we're not encouraging people to install carbon monoxide. We are encouraging people to do that. What we're trying to do is make this ordinance enforceable, or make the codes enforceable by amending it to exclude exterior work, because then we cannot verify the alarms are installed. That's basically all we're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, further discussion on the amendment. What we are voting on is the amendment to add the word exterior on page 2, line 3, between of and plumbing.
The vote is 7 in favor. The motion is approved.
Okay, now we're back to the amended ordinance or amended motion. Discussion on that.
The motion is the vote is 7 in favor, and the motion is approved.
Okay. Reports. Yes, City Attorney.
I don't have one.
No, I just wanted me to wish you all a Merry Christmas from all the staff and a safe New Year's, and we'll see you in January.
Dr. Cole.
Okay, so I wish all the folks out in the audience here and at home or wherever happy holidays, whatever holidays you're celebrating. There's several, but anyway, so happy holidays. I hope as you're celebrating, you'll also reach deep to try to help the victims of the accident. And I want to thank Councilwoman Brinkman for the incredible work that she did getting the fund set up and working with people. So let that pause a second. Then we received, at my request, a copy of the assessment of Bemis Library. And if you haven't read it, I would encourage you to, but I'm going to write up quite a few responses to what I read. I just didn't have time yet. I was quite disappointed with the study, the failure to consider quite a few things in my mind, so I will write those up and share them. Anyway, I don't need to dwell on that. And then, as came up somewhat during our discussion about fees and so forth, I'm requesting that when we have our next budget session, which will, the major budget session for 2012, that again we look at fees to see if they are, if they need to be increased, reduced, just held the same, but that we look at those, because part of what we've seen in the last year is, what we've discovered is we had quite a few fees that hadn't been changed in over 20 years. So I just like keep all those on our radar so that we can modify them if need be. And I'm sure I'm forgetting something big here, but anyway, thank you all. And again, for the public, tell somebody down there, tell what these little creatures are that are in front of each of us and how we got them.
They're just Build-A-Bears from the Build-A-Bear shop in Littleton. And Suzanne and I, the city attorney, actually, I thought of this about 2 years ago and I wanted to do it, but I wasn't brave enough to do it by myself. So I told Suzanne about it, and she totally supported me, and we just kept within the parameters of the Build-A-Bear shop, so we didn't add anything outside the shops, because there would have been other things that we would have added had we had access to them. But they're just for the council. I just thought they were neat, and I wanted to do it.
They're just little mini U's.
They're mini U's, so Merry
You can
Christmas.
figure out what the accessories mean.
Happy.
Everyone got an
Okay, but thank you so much. And when I look closer at what mine looks like, I'm not sure if this is the way you'd like me to look, or you think I might have looked a long time ago. But anyway, it's really fun. Thank you.
Well, actually, yours didn't have long enough legs to pull the knee socks up all the way, so.
Righteous. Top that, Phil.
Sure. Certainly, Merry Christmas to everyone that's out there. And I know personally, I thank Debbie for the work that she's done for the school. I used to live at the Pinnacle at Mountain Gate and relate to the community there. And it's certainly something that is important. So I'll echo Dr. Cole's comment that if you have an opportunity, I know that it's tough out there, but both the two individuals that have been injured that will be going through rehab, plus David's family, if you can remember them. If you can't financially support it, certainly your thoughts and prayers and good wishes are much appreciated in that. Also, wanted to thank certainly Suzanne and Wendy. And then a few of the other items to mention is the Historic Preservation Board met, actually did not have a meeting this month, but had a workshop on December 9th. It was held over at the courthouse because the electricity in the city center was turned out. So apologize for any folks that may have not quite gotten directed to the workshop. It was facilitated by Nori Winter, who is the consultant that's being used to establish some design guidelines, particularly for historic downtown area, and there were about 18 folks that managed to collect that evening. There will be follow-on as the material is pulled together for that report, and it's approximately in late January, early February that that next step will be pulled together. With the South Metro Denver Chamber of Commerce, the Economic Development Group met on December 10th and had a number of items that were pulled together for that presentation, one being I can't remember if it's Light Eye Technologies, which is a local firm that has see-through displays that are used in the military, where someone basically has a little monocle and they have an opportunity to see their computer screen through that monocle and yet be able to be in a position to observe. The chairman of the organization was actually knighted by the government in England because it has saved so many lives for their tank deployment and what they're using, because it seems when a explosive device is buried below the ground that would blow up a tank, that it does disturb the ground and creates a thermal footprint that then can be seen through these monocles. So it's kind of some neat stuff. The 24th annual Economic Forecast Breakfast will be in January. I believe it's January 19th. So for those folks that are interested in that, and then also on December 14th, the Legislative Action Committee of the Chamber got together and had a chance to hear from the new lobbyist, and the intent is hopefully to have Speaker McNulty before the group on January 11th before session really gets running and grooving. Did take some of the messages forward to the South Suburban Park and Rec District Board that were mentioned earlier. One was the brush cleanup at Kettering Park, and Jim Priddy had indicated that's on their list, but they have a seasonal rotation that goes along with that, and I'm not sure if they've had a chance to get out or not. I haven't had a chance to check on that. And then with regard the pathway at Stern Park, Jim Priddy initially indicated because of the erosion location it might need to be concrete rather than asphalt, but that was a preliminary discussion on that front. And do want to mention, if folks haven't had a chance to get out to view Hudson Holidays, it's bigger and better than last year, and is absolutely pretty good. We had a group of about 200 people that were out there on Saturday night that we brought in, and so it was fun. Folks came from as far away as Kiowa, so it was so we brought some folks into Littleton for that. And if you haven't had a chance to get over to the Buck Center, they do have their punch card end of the year sale, so you can get some attendance or ability to enter at a good discount. So, and in addition to Hudson Holidays this past weekend, we had a chance to have some pizza and appropriate beverage over at McKinner's, and wanted to say good wishes goes out to one of my favorite bartenders, John, as he changes his career path. And Merry Christmas to all. And if you haven't noticed, since Peggy does walk around, she's the only one that really has any soul.
Jim?
Let me recover. I had a conversation with Jan Dickinson, I believe earlier today, about a couple of missing fees that were in the fee schedule, and I'd like to go into the list for update on those fees come to us at some point in the future. There were a couple of things missing out of there, and I thought she was going to present it tonight, but didn't, so I'd like to have it done sometime in the future. And she'll know what it's talking about. And secondly, I got in my packet 5 letters from the Arapahoe Community College Foundation. I got everybody's except mine and Peggy's. So I'll be glad to give you everybody theirs, except whoever's got mine, I'll keep theirs, if you know who you got. So, did you get one?
Yeah, so I must have got yours.
You must have gotten mine. All right. Then I'll keep yours, Debbie, and everybody else can have theirs. And Peggy said she got hers, so take yours and come back. And then I got all 7 of the letters from Comcast. So I kept mine, and I'll pass out yours. So.
Oh, fee increase, yay.
Can I have my bill put in your packet?
That's not part of the deal.
That's one back.
About that?
And actually, that's all I've got for my report.
Okay. Deb?
A question on our follow-up. The follow-up with Judy Hinton on the red light camera at Bowles and Platte Canyon. That's under Bill's responsible staff, and there's been no action. I really think that we need to move that to a higher priority for her. Also, in lieu of the fact that we did get the accident report from Charlie, and that I think it came in at number 4 or 5. So that intersection, Judy's, I think, may need another look too. That's the only piece of business I had. Definitely want to wish everybody a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And thank you, Wendy, for the Bears and Suzanne. They're absolutely, we're sitting up here periodically catching items, and Bruce and I have been acting like children laughing. So, good. That's all I have.
We're tie boy.
There you go. We do think they need to somehow be on display over by the pictures of council. It just is way too appropriate to keep them all together as opposed to dispersing them. Yeah, likewise on the Happy Holidays, I'll regale you with a very brief story. So I was over at, I think I mentioned we had a lighted wreath in our front window a few years ago, and the lights went out, and I fooled around. In fact, I think I saw you at Ace Hardware that one day, and I was trying to find replacement bulbs for the light, and I just couldn't get the thing working. So my solution was to go sustainable, so I went over to St. Nick's and got a big bow and stuck it on the window with a couple of floodlights, and just started catching massive grief from the rest of the family. So the solution to that was, of course, to go back to St. Nick's and get more floodlights, which I did. But they only had blue lights, so I figured, okay, great, I'll just grab a bunch of these blue floodlights and take them home, and, it's Christmas, right? So I get these things home, and my wife and my oldest son are sitting there looking at these while I'm pulling all this stuff out of the bag, and they say, what'd you get blue for? I said, I like blue. They said, well, blue's for Hanukkah. I said, no. And they said, yeah. And I said, no. And after about 4 other people wandered on by, it was pretty apparent that, yeah, blue is pretty much a Hanukkah color. So happy Hanukkah to everybody as well. Regard, it was, which is absolutely wonderful. So I just, it's contrary to all evidence aside, council members are fallible. It's hard to believe. But moving on, let me see here. The Littleton Public Schools Board meeting was held, I think, on the 12th. And there's information presented on the secondary large-scale assessment CSAP data analysis with a variety of student subgroup information cuts. They have a program where they're basically sort of a grassroots kind of program where they went out and essentially have had, I think Littleton High School is doing what they call a math intervention to really focus on math methods to get younger students on a better trajectory in a small class size with a numeracy skill focus that was interesting and creative. The school, there was an update on school performance plans where applicable, and there was a career and tech ed update. There was also information presented in an email that came out subsequently about Littleton Public Schools have been awarded the highest accreditation category in Colorado, which is accredited with distinction. It's the only school district in the Denver metro area to receive this accreditation, and the Colorado Department of Education designation puts LPS in the top 8% of all school districts in Colorado. Only 14 districts statewide were accredited with distinction. The board also won an award from, I believe it's the Colorado School Board Association as being the top school board in the state. So congratulations all around to LPS. Let me see here. Oh, there was the holiday Recyc Oil event, which was held a bit after Thanksgiving, I think early December, is essentially recycling cooking oil. It's the Rocky Mountain Sustainable Enterprises runs this thing, and something else I didn't know. Apparently you can take peanut oil and deep fry turkeys, which an awful lot of people do, and apparently it's quite good. But it does generate an awful lot of waste oil, cooking oil. Over 10 cities in the metro, over 1,050 gallons of used cooking oil were retrieved. Littleton came in third. Arvada, Aurora was first with 292 gallons. Arvada second, and then Littleton kicked some tushy, and we finished third, well ahead of Denver, Fort Collins, Greeley, Loveland, and even Lakewood. So kudos to the staff and the volunteers. We had some folks from the Green Citizens Advisory Board come out, and that was actually, it was messy, but it was sort of fun. Before I get to, I'll do the quick, notwithstanding we've talked about Build-A-Bear and we've also talked about St. Nick's. This will be a threefer. The ever-popular, often imitated, never duplicated Merchant Plug of the Week this week goes to a business that's right next door to St. Nick's on the south side, which is Access Communications, pointing up yet again that the variety of businesses in the Littleton community is virtually infinite. Access Communications provides expertise in terms of configuring business telecommunications solutions, whether it's voice over IP or Ethernet kinds of arrangements or longer optical, perhaps SIP trunking kinds of technical attributes to a telecommunication, comprehensive telecommunications solution. So if you are in need of consultation in that regard, I strongly suggest that you talk to Access and can, in fact, recommend them from personal experience as well, having had contact with them in my work environment. Lastly, to the gentlemen who were here earlier, I guess I wanted to take the pulse of council from the standpoint of I personally would be interested on the whole Crestwood deal, at least to sort of get a little more information from them and see if there's something that makes sense given that that building's been there a long time and we're talking about this kind of stuff at workshops and in other venues. Doesn't mean we have to necessarily do anything or not do anything, but I'd be inclined or I'd be interested in having staff see what they could work and come up with a proposal if there's maybe 3 other votes to support that request.
Is there anybody that has a...
Is there anybody else?
I assume that includes you.
I would support Bruce's request. I don't see harm in at least exploring what maybe some of the options might be.
I think it gives us some platform for what we would be discussing at the workshop to work through a specific issue and see what could happen on that front. My one reservation is it seemed that the timeline that David was indicating earlier might be a little tighter than any government that I know of could respond, because there's very little that can happen to give them a solid foundation between now and the beginning of the year. So the first reach out would be, hey, knowing the city can't do anything, would you want to at least have some discussions in the time frame? If they have something open, then I'd say yes.
Okay.
I guess I would more lean towards having him bring something a little bit more concrete. It was very vague. There were no specifics, and I don't really think the city should instigate that or should be the, what's the word? Word gone. Initiator of that. So if he does end up, has another communication with the city, I would just suggest that he sends in a proposal, a specific proposal. You guys may even have a format or something that, or not.
Well, what you were just saying is where I was concerned was exactly what is the parameters of how deep do we go after having a discussion that we have at council at the last study session, and understanding some of the other things that we've done with buildings that we've owned. We usually ask people to submit some sort of framework, a proposal saying how and where do you want us to get involved. And, you all are very on top of things, but just remember that, whatever we ask, whatever this person submits, then you're going to get others' proposals. And some of the things he said about an Italian restaurant being in the area, there's other restaurants, and they're going to be concerned about what's our involvement. So we're certainly willing to go down this path, but I'd rather see what he's got on his ideas before we go and initiate a lot of work.
Well, this is getting far enough along that, Bruce, I think you need to formulate this into a motion so we know exactly what it is that we are directing or not directing the staff to do.
Okay.
Please.
I'll move that council directs staff to work with the potential investors in the Crestwood Inn redevelopment to identify a proposed economic development initiative that could come back to council for consideration.
I'll second that.
Hang on. So the motion that's been seconded is to direct staff to work with Crestwood Inn investors to identify and propose an economic development initiative that could come back to council. Okay? Discussion. And I guess I'll jump in on this because the limit that I'm willing to do on a individual property owner that has a property that they have maintained or not maintained that's caused them issues on being able to sell the property is we do industrial bonds, which we have done for other particular businesses. If they want to come down and investigate the possibility of getting an industrial bond, which is a way for them to borrow money at perhaps a lower interest rate, perhaps not, because interest rates are pretty low right now. I'm willing to do that because we do that to any other business. But I personally don't want to start down the path of helping individual businesses with economic incentive packages when they're trying to sell their property to somebody else to come in and purchase the property and set up a business. I think once we start going down that path, we're going to have a very difficult time deciding which businesses we are going to assist and which ones we aren't going to assist. If there were a standard package that existed, such as an enterprise zone or, and I'm not willing to do urban redevelopment for an issue like this. So if there was a standard package that already existed that they could take advantage of, such as the industrial redevelopment bonds, I'd say go for it, but I don't want to start tailoring economic development packages to individual restaurants and buildings that will then compete with other restaurants that we have in Littleton. And there's another family-based Italian restaurant that's within a half mile of that restaurant. So I'm going to vote no against this. Bruce.
You may, I'm not suggesting that, I think this again falls in the category of we aren't approving anything by going out and seeking information and considering it. I think it's, you could absolutely be right. I completely agree that at some level, preferencing a given business over one business versus another has distinct consequences. By the same token, given the demonstrated need for incremental revenue, I think it's worth an exploratory utilization of resources to consider what even benign steps we may engage in that we haven't to date maybe contemplated, and I don't know what those are, that could help promote someone who wants to come in and do this. I mean, on this one in particular, I am just moderately surprised that they don't even just think in terms of rehabbing that building. To me seems like almost you could scrape it and build a new one for less. But it's not my call and it's not my decision. At the same point in time, if they're going to bring jobs, if they're going to support that neighborhood, if they're going to generate incremental sales tax in a dodgy economy, I'd be inclined to at least consider what they have to say or explore as far as, again, our fiduciary responsibility to the financial health of the community.
Well, if we do this, I suggest we assign this to Chris Gibbons to come back.
Well, I was going to suggest that he's already met with Chris, so I would like to understand at what level Chris and what kind of discussions they had, and what exactly is he looking for. For instance, I could see something fairly benign that he could do or we could do for him is to point him in the right direction. We have some energy efficiency dollars that we have worked out with the governor's office. They're helping us manage. For instance, this is just one example. I'm not saying this is, but this is an idea. We point him in that direction. Hey, if you need some energy dollars, you fill out this application, you apply for the process, you go through the governor's office to see if you qualify. I mean, that's those kinds of things. Those are connecting the person with the services that we already have. With that memo that Chris did at the last meeting, that to me was a good backdrop for shopping centers, but you could apply it to a lot of other businesses, everything from the most, doing tax increment finding and urban renewal to the lowest level. So there is sort of that framework, but I'd rather have Chris sit down with him and go through, if we're going to go down this path, what's at the lowest level can we support him in some of his ideas. But I got to tell you right now, this will be a lot of work if we don't have a framework to work in.
I guess I would maybe have the work be one of those things where we can take a look at what are they trying to do. It sounds like they have a plan for the property, that has some major renovation or adjustments to the building. I know we helped facilitate some when Mercedes of Littleton was done, so that it was a streamlined process, and that would certainly be an example of an area. When he says something, I don't know what David was referring to. Again, we didn't have nor would this be appropriate forum for us to be talking about specific details on a particular property at the council level. He needs to certainly firm up what they're trying to do, have that discussion, and I don't know if Chris can help facilitate those discussions within the departments, or whether that's something that you can do, Phil. But it's I would use what we did with the Mercedes of Littleton on a significant renovation on a property to help streamline that process to get it done. To say, hey, we have worked with property owners that want to do some nice things to buildings that are existing. Here's what that looks like. If there's some other program offerings that are out there that are, but I mean, given the time frame that David indicated, unless they can extend that, I don't see us being in a position to respond more than here's some of the things that we've done and here's some of the things that are available. But I think a reach out with someone that wants to do something with a property to have it be a viable business is positive.
Okay. Deb?
I'm not going to support Bruce's motion because I think it goes a little further than I'm ready to go at this point. I support working with these businesses, with this particular group, the same way we work with all of the other businesses in Littleton. I'm not ready to start doing one-off work when we don't have, as Phil has said, any kind of a framework. We don't have a design for a program like that. There are things that are available to them that are available to other businesses, but to do things exclusively, I'm not comfortable with that yet. And I don't think it's fair to lead them down that kind of a path either. So I go back to, what do they want? And until, number one for me, until we find out what they want, and if they do, I think they should sit down with Chris and have just once they tell Chris what they want, he will be able to find these types of programs and things like that, the same thing he would offer to other businesses in Littleton to help support their efforts. And I think it does give us fodder for our workshop too. I think I'm glad they came down. I'm glad it's something to stir up some more conversation, because I don't think this will be the last one that we hear from either.
Peggy.
Yeah, I agree with what Debbie said. It seems to me that Chris's area has demonstrated a wide range of ways that they can work with businesses, potential ones, and otherwise to accomplish what they want. And I would suggest that we stay within the framework of what we've been doing and not branch out at this point into something of this sort. And again, I think this is a topic in a larger way for workshop.
Any other discussion? Jose?
Thank you. All right, I'll be voting against this because of the fact that I think in our economic times right now, a restaurant is about the place you don't want to start up. I'm not saying that facetiously because of the fact that out of 90 out of 100 are going out of business right now. The rate that stays in is 10% out of 100. And when you're working with a group there that actually the owner wants us to get together, it sounds to me like, and work this thing in, then they'll really sit. Guys in that position, if they're not making it, they just bail. That's it. They don't have no commitment to that place. So I haven't, no, that's not for me.
Okay, the motion is to direct staff to work with Crestwood Inn investors to identify and propose a economic development initiative that could come back to the council. Ready to vote?
The vote is 3 in favor with Councilmember Cole, Councilmember Clark, Councilmember Brinkman, and Councilmember Trujillo voting no. The motion fails.
Okay.
Anything else, Bruce?
Nope.
Jose?
I'm the last one?
Oh, no.
Okay. Oh, you guys, who's that guy?
What's your last one?
Okay, I had a complaint yesterday, or the day before. A gentleman came into my restaurant, was walking through Kettering Park, and there were 4 coyotes there, and suddenly this cat appeared out of no place, and they took off into the bush, and their coyotes went in there, and there was quite a scuffle, then silence. And I don't know what happened there, but I don't think the cat came out. And his question to me, what is the city going to do about all the coyotes going up there? And I said, well, I don't know. They're just trying to eat, you know. That's their fare. And it's unfortunate, but unless we go around there and set a guy out there with a 30-30 and take care of them, you can't do that, you know. So we've discussed coyotes before, and I don't think there's much we can do about that at this time.
Jose, when was that exciting event?
What's that?
When was that exciting encounter?
Just a couple of days ago, he said, about maybe Thursday.
Okay, because they're apparently either the same ones or others recently, in the last couple of days, reported at Stern Park, too, very close to the houses, just sitting there, waiting.
Yes.
Hopefully
That's what they
not
do
for
best.
me, but
They wait. They're very patient.
yeah.
Yeah, they take care of things. The second thing is I got a nice Christmas card here, and it shows a cat, and his Buddy the dog is laying over his back, and it's a really nice picture. So it reminded me of those coyotes there. But I would like to read this this little note that came in it, and it says, "Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas to all. When I was young and in my prime, Christmas was a happy time. And now I'm old and have to cry because I don't get my pumpkin pie. Times when I'm upon the stool and I just sit there and all I do is drool, thinking of the good times past, knowing that they'd never last. And that's the way it is, my friends. Have a happy Merry Christmas." When you get to be old like us guys, right, Jim? That's right. Get over 70, 75, this means a lot.
He drew on us.
Drool. I thought that was kind of funny. I don't usually, I just cast my eyes over the Christmas cards as they come in, because my wife, as soon as she gets them, she grabs them and reads them, and she puts them on the doors and things like that. Doesn't give me much time to read them, But that one caught my eye.
That's good.
Yes. So I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Thank you for this little teddy bear here. Takes me back to the core. And I'll take good care of him. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Can the Dr. Cog report top that?
Probably not, but I'm going to give it anyway. The Metro Vision Issues Committee reviewed the staff's work on the 125 requests that we had for funding in the next transportation improvement cycle. Of course, there's not enough money to fund all of them, and we'll be taking action on that at a later date. The Advisory Committee on Aging had presentations by Brown, Bortz, and Coddington on transportation delivery services. We contracted with them to survey all the county services that we did and see where efficiencies and inefficiencies were there. All the transportation providers, most of them were in the audience at the same time and heard the presentation. And we'll be taking action on that later on. We also had an overview of the Ombudsman annual report and some of the things that they get involved with having to inspect all the nursing homes and assisted facilities in the entire metro 8-county region. The Administrative Committee had several resolutions on contracts, and we did approve the transportation plan that came out of the Advisory Committee on Aging that was to move forward with some efficiencies that will be coming in the next year. The Board of Directors held a public hearing on the 2035 Metro Vision Plan, the Regional Transportation Plan, and an implementation plan for air quality. We appointed members, a member and an alternate to the State Transportation Advisory Committee, established legislative policy for guidance to the lobbyists, and had a presentation on transit-oriented development research and reports from 6 committees. That's Dr. Cog report.
Anything else?
Just 2 quick items. For folks that haven't necessarily been following the CML website, while thoughts of sugar plums go into some young folks' heads, the 7th graders have an opportunity to participate in If I Were a Mayor contest, and recognition that we did have someone within one of our local schools that won for the Front Range last year, and Lisa White is the individual to contact at cml.org. And the second item is, the secular element of a Christmas tree. And if you can remember, trying to reach up and put that star on top of the tree, that sometimes when you weren't quite big enough, you needed a little bit of help. And it seems that the City of Littleton's own equipment didn't quite reach high enough to put the star on our Christmas tree, and we had the bucket truck from South Suburban came and helped us put that star on top of the tree this year. So Merry Christmas to all.
Thank you. Happy holidays, and thank you for the Bears. Appreciate it. We're adjourned.